We've all kind of wrapped our heads around the fact that the Mariners are not going to make any gigantic moves the rest of this offseason, but if they do plan on making their team better, there's a really good chance they go with this player and this opportunity. The Mariners have talked ad nauseum about wanting to get somebody that can play a corner outfield position, as well as possibly being able to give Ty France a day off at first base, somebody that can play the corner of the infield. Obviously, giving up Toro, who could have at least given Gino a day off over at third, was kind of tough, but the Mariners could be looking at former top prospect and Rookie of the Year Wil Meyers. Now, Wil Meyers turns 32 in just a few days, and if I'm being honest, I have always thought that Wil Meyers was going to be a Seattle Mariner. Overall, Meyers has had an up and down career and has not lived up to the potential that everyone thought he had, but for the Mariners, he could be the perfect fit. In 2022 alone, Wil Meyers played 25 games at first base and 52 games in the outfield, so he can play both a corner outfield position as well as playing first base. He's a right-handed hitter that could be a good complement if they did want to start Jarred Kelenic out in left field and give him a right-handed platoon to kind of kickstart his career. Hopefully, Kelenic versus righties will be able to take a new form, and then putting Wil Meyers in left field against lefties, I think is a really good start. And like I said, he'd be able to take over at first base for Ty France for a day or two if France needs a break, which they've talked about multiple times, especially here in the winter meetings. In 2022, Meyers hit 261, 315, 398 with a 108 OPS plus. He hit 7 home runs with 41 RBIs in just 77 games. Back in 2021, he played in 146 games. He hit 256, 334, 434 with an OPS plus of 113. He hit 17 home runs and 63 RBI. Now, I think this is more or less the player that we would see from Wil Meyers if he were to play a full season. I think the good news about Meyers is he's not going to be all that expensive in my opinion. I think that the Mariners could probably get him on a 1 or 2 year, probably $10 to $12 million deal. He's not going to break the bank. Here are his 2021 percentile rankings, and while they're not great, it doesn't take into account how he hit versus lefties and righties. Obviously, there's a lot of blue and some dark blue on here, which is never good. He was great in sprint speed, outs above average were good. He walks quite a bit, and well, he had good arm strength, so that's cool, I guess. But it's the batted ball data that we really need to take a look at. In 2021 against lefties, Wil Meyers hit 271. He only hit 4 home runs with 20 runs scored and 11 RBIs, and he only had 118 at-bats versus lefties. With that being said, however, against righties, he had 133 at-bats, where he did hit 13 home runs, but only hit 250. In 2022, these numbers weren't that much of a difference. He played in 48 games against lefties, hit 264, and 69 games, nice, against righties, hitting 259. And throughout his career, he's had 2,684 at-bats versus righties, hitting 254, and 1,015 at-bats versus lefties, hitting 255. Obviously, a much smaller sample size versus lefties, but that's just the way the ball be. 2022, Wil Meyers was worth about 1.2 BWAR, which again is not stellar, but if the Mariners are looking for a role player here, I think he fits in quite well. And I find his batted ball data fascinating, as he's definitely hitting the ball up the middle a lot more than he is any other directions. A lot of times you'll see players with heavy pull side power and pull side percentage, but in this situation, Wil Meyers hits the ball up the middle, and that's been consistent throughout his career, over his batted balls usually being above 50%, all except for 2022. Now, I'm not going to pretend that the banning of the shift is something that I would understand how this is going to affect his numbers here, but alas, why not? The banning of the shift, we'll just say this will help him out. There are definitely some worrying numbers here with Meyers, however, that I think we need to look at. In 2022, Wil Meyers was striking out at a 30.1% clip, which was the second highest of his career, only to 2019. He was also only walking 7.3% of the time. He had never been below 8 up until 2022. His home run percentage was way down. You were looking at his BABIP, and his BABIP was somehow one of the highest points, if not the highest point of his career, and yet it wasn't equating to better results. Wil Meyers is not a sexy pick for the Seattle Mariners. In fact, there are plenty of players I think I would prefer on the trade market than Wil Meyers on a free agent deal, but alas, if this is what the Mariners decide to do, I think I'm okay with it. I think that Wil Meyers has an opportunity to be a great role player for this team. He should not be starting every day in my opinion, but if he can be a platoon for Jarred Kelenic in left field and maybe giving Ty France some days off over at first base, I think that's a great start. The problem is that the Mariners already have somewhat of a platoon going at second base with Kolten Wong. I want you guys to check that video out on the screen now. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.